and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. We're presented by The Athletic and CLNS Media. Today on the show, the second part of that top 25 players under 23 podcast. I have brought back Dieter Kurtenbach to discuss this thing. Dieter, how's it going, man? Tell me everything that's happened in your life since the last 30 minutes that we've talked.
Yeah, I made a tuna fish sandwich.
Ooh, are we talking tuna salad or tuna fish?
Well, it's a very light tuna salad, I would suppose. Not that complicated. Didn't add any walnuts or little hay capers, so I definitely didn't add those. Nothing other than some tuna and some olive oil, mayonnaise, and a couple pieces of bread, and I feel really good about it.
Ooh, see, what I do with tuna salad is I go with the hard-boiled egg. I go with the celery. I'll add maybe a little bit of cucumber. A little bit of red pepper for some color.
Ooh, that'd be nice.
And then go from there.
Yeah. I didn't think that I had that much time. The beauty of tuna, low calorie. I mean, the mayo doesn't help, but I try to mitigate as much as just a dab or two and get it in there. The celery would be great. I don't want to chop up a bunch of stuff. I just need the sustenance. Like, I'm not looking for anything fancy. I'm eating a tuna sandwich. Like, this isn't going to be an ordeal. That said, What you described sounds real nice.
Yeah, earlier today, I did Laura, my girlfriend, is sick. She's working from home today. So I made sandwiches. I did a nice Chipotle mayo that I made. I did a little bit of ham, a little bit of roast beef, some avocado, a bit of very strong white cheddar cheese, and then some onion and some romaine lettuce. And toasted that bad boy up and went for it.
That sounds delightful. And I also didn't want to cook too much or do anything in our little recess, just because I cooked so much this morning. So I moved in with my girlfriend in Oakland. We have this new place that doesn't have enough furniture, but the kitchen is fully operational. Her dad and her stepmom showed up this morning at around 8 a.m. Announced. Let's go with announced. And they were in town for a wedding, and they're kind of doing an in and out. They flew in last night, went to the wedding, stayed at the hotel, came by, saw us, and went right back to the airport. My girlfriend also inadvertently, or perhaps vertently, invited her entire team, her work team, over because the cloud cover in San Francisco stayed pretty heavy, or was going to stay pretty heavy throughout the day, whereas in Oakland it breaks up a lot earlier. So I had to cook for 8 people, a big continental breakfast.
Oh no!
My girlfriend does not cook, and then and it was just weird. It's it's my girlfriend, my girlfriend's work friends, and her dad and stepmom, and me. So I was the simple efficiency and joy of the crappy 5-minute tuna sandwich really was a delight.
Yeah, I don't blame you there. Now that you've explained your morning and how much effort went in the kitchen, sometimes you just gotta go very simple tuna fish.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could have given them all the same thing, but it was eggs and hash browns and bacon and waffles, and we had a fruit plate. It was preposterous. I don't know whose house was this.
Yeah, no. You know who's not going to be eating a lot of continental breakfast though? Who? All of the players on our top 25 under 23 list, because they're trying to get into shape. They are not going for waffles, hopefully. They are going for the fruit, the vegetables, and all of the great things that help your body get into shape. So,
well, we already talked about Brandon Ingram, who probably should have a few more waffles.
Well, yeah,
everybody else on this list, I think, is in pretty good weight class. Maybe one guy.
Yeah, Brandon Ingram, they are... there's some sort of, I think it's BiPro, like a protein supplement. They've been doing videos with Brandon on him trying to put on weight. Looks like it's going pretty good. So if you want to go find those, ask me and I'll shoot you the link. I think that he's tweeted them out as well. But, I think it looks pretty good on what his diet looks like and everything like that. So maybe he should be eating all of these waffles and everything like that.
If I need to put on 15 pounds, I just add in a shit ton of carbs. So I'm sure it can work for Brandon Ingram too.
This is true. All right. So just a quick refresher on the way that this list works. So anybody that was born in 1994 or later, that knocks off some names like Anthony Davis, who was born in 1993, Otto Porter, Bradley Beal, even a guy like Buddy Hield, who was born in late 1993, despite being a second-year player. these guys are all going to be ineligible for this list. Having said that, the guys who are eligible, we have a nice little mix here. We have, I believe, 3 rookies. We have a few guys from the 2015 NBA draft. We have, I believe, one more guy from the 2016 NBA draft. Mm-hmm. And a lot of big guys are going to be on this list. I believe that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these players are 6'10" or taller. So it's a little bit interesting, given that earlier in the show we kind of mentioned that the second half of this list was mostly littered with guards, with combo forwards, with versatile players. The top of the list here, the cream kind of rose to the top in terms of the center position, and I think that you're going to see that bear itself out.
Especially when you consider the talent that these guys at the center position have. I mentioned this in the first podcast.
So you indicative. Dare say the word unicorn.
No, I'm not. Why would I use that term? It's more to the effect of it's so indicative of where the NBA is heading.
Yep.
That these guys are – there's a lot of guys on this list that have the skill sets that these guys at the very top have.
Yep.
But so few have it in such large, imposing frames. And this sort of freakish is the wrong term, but incredible just physical gifts on top of polished games and so much room to grow on top of that. Really exciting times.
So, yeah, I think that we're kind of in the middle of a tier here, maybe toward the bottom of a tier. The way that I kind of explained the way that I see the tiers working is I think that our top 1 through 5 is a tier in and of itself. I think that from basically 6 on down through 13, so including Lonzo Ball, who we discussed last podcast, I think that's probably a tier. And then from number 14, who we named as D'Angelo Russell, down to right around number 19 or 20, and then from 20 on down through, I think is about what you're looking at in terms of tiers of this list of talent. And we're going to get into the top 5. The top 5 is unbelievable, and you could kind of
really incredible
in a lot of different ways. But let's go to the bottom of this list. Number 12, I have Jayson Tatum. Jayson Tatum, I think that it's a bit of a, I don't want to say hot take, but I think it's a bit of an unpopular opinion to have him over Lonzo Ball. And the reason that I have him over Lonzo Ball is that I think shot creation and the ability to score from the wing position and from the forward position is incredibly valuable in today's NBA, because anybody like him who can get his own shot at the end of a shot clock and have it be relatively inefficient, relatively efficient. I know that he gets a lot of shit for, whether or not he's going to be an efficient player going forward, because some people don't buy his 3-point shot. Some people don't buy him at the rim. The ability to knock down and create mid-range jumpers, it is a skill that continues to be valuable in today's NBA, I think. Just being able to create that shot with 4 seconds left, 3 seconds left on the shot clock, and have it go in occasionally, or at the end of games, being able to knock down that shot. It is really valuable, I think, to be able to create and make your own shot. His defensive potential, I think, is solid. 6'8", 6'11", 7-foot wingspan, solid body, solid frame. I think he's going to be pretty switchable. He was, I would say, an average defensive player at Duke. Sometimes the effort wasn't quite there, but he showed flashes in terms of switchability. Not going to be a guy that blocks a lot of shots at the 4 position. Not going to be a guy that necessarily gets into passing lanes a crazy amount, although he can do it occasionally. Definitely more just an average defender, I think, who is going to be able to guard a few positions, be a threat to switch on to some guys, and not necessarily get overpowered. But again, it comes down to offense. I see the fact that he's actually a pretty good passer at 6'8". I think that's a big differentiator. I think the fact that he can create shots both out of the post or out of the triple threat position is really important. And I believe in the jump shot eventually translating as well. So all of that together, I think that the expected value equation of his, what you can think of him as a player is just slightly higher than Lonzo Ball. Lonzo Ball certainly has a higher ceiling than what Jayson Tatum is. I think they're both potential all-stars long-term. But Jayson Tatum, again, an incredibly hard worker, a guy that, comes from a great background. I believe Larry Hughes is his godfather, has been taken under the wing by Bradley Beal, who's really helped him develop some game. You can see within his footwork how diligently he works on his game, how diligently he works to kind of create new little looks in his game. Not that Lonzo doesn't work hard at all. I don't mean that necessarily, but I trust Jayson Tatum to get the absolute most out of whatever his potential is.
Yeah, I mean, it will come down, and we're at the juncture in this list where we're still having to explain perhaps why they're on it, and not only why they're on it, but why they're better than some pretty damn good players that are under them. And with Tatum, it's aggressive, but I like it in the sense that, specifically as it relates to Ball, I think Ball's ceiling is as high as anybody's on this list. We've seen how incendiary he can be in a positive sense when he's at his best. I don't think we've seen that level with Tatum, but I think it's right up there as well. When Tatum decides he's the man, things happen in a hurry. So their ceilings are both incredibly high, as you said, both all-star caliber players down the line, if not relatively soon. Tatum's floor is much higher than Lonzo Ball's.
Agreed.
Period. Lonzo Ball, this could all go horribly wrong. I just don't see that happening with Jayson Tatum. You look at his body, the fluidity which he moves, the clear desire to progress his offensive game, I think will carry into his defensive end once he gets a little bit older and has to be a little bit more savvy. I mean, his jump from his time at Duke, where he was obviously pretty damn good, to just those summer league games, and obviously the talent level isn't a fair comparison, but like Jayson Tatum learned a bunch of really cool shit during the offseason and showed it off in summer league. Like,
well, I don't even know that he learned it. Like, I think shit that he always had, but because of the condensed offensive zone in college, he didn't really get a chance to show it off. Like, the fact that the spacing is totally different in college because the three-point line is closer, I think it actually hinders a guy like Jayson Tatum.
Yeah, well, either way, we saw another level, and even if he didn't learn that fresh, even if he always had that in the arsenal, he had to get good at it over the offseason. He had to understand how that game was going to be different and get out ahead of it. And to this point, and again, he hasn't gotten punched in the mouth by the real big boys yet, but to this point, he has been ahead of the curve. And that is something that I want to bank on. I don't know if he has the most athletic talent in this class, but he's pretty damn athletic. I don't know if he has the best work ethic in this class, but it looks like he has a pretty damn good work ethic. He's also in a situation where he is going to be given lots of opportunity to succeed. It's the reason that Jaylen Brown, who hasn't really shown us all that much other than flashes of potential, is on this list at number 25. Jayson Tatum has a higher potential than Jaylen Brown. I think that everyone would agree with that.
In more offensive skill.
Yeah, definitely offensive skill, and I think Jaylen Brown's going to be a really good defender. I don't think Jayson Tatum is going to be a bad defender. I think that he can be an average to above average defender, and offense trumps defense in the NBA today. But you look at the situations that both of them are in, essentially at the same position, that wing position that Brad Stevens likes to run. They're going to be given opportunities to succeed, and I don't know if it happens this year or next year or the year after that for Jayson Tatum, but everything I've seen to this point, as someone who was initially skeptical on maybe his ceiling, has changed my mind on that. I don't know if I'm all in. I'm not putting in a bet or anything like that. I'm not as excited about him, but he just seems like a steady. He's the mutual fund of prospects. The index fund of prospects. He just seems like a really steady, improving bet year in and year out, and there's just not a lot of risk in him, and that's an important thing because there is in some of these prospects, specifically in his class, there's a lot of risk, and a good environment, low risk, high ceiling, that's a good investment for me.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with all of that. Tatum's a guy where he's entering kind of a weird situation in Boston because you don't know how much opportunity is going to be there. Right. If he was going to your traditional top 3 team, I would be pretty shocked if he didn't average 20 points a game within his first 3 years. He's just that polished, that skilled. Same kind of level prospect as what Jabari Parker was coming into the draft, I think. Maybe a little bit lower because I don't think he's necessarily as vertically explosive as Jabari is. But same kind of, polished offensive game, same kind of shooting potential, same kind of creation ability. Just overall, a really, in my opinion, safe player who's going to be a really, really good basketball player. There are some scouts around the league who believe he could lead the league in scoring someday. Yeah. I don't know that I'm quite there.
Yeah, I don't think in that environment, I don't think on that team, if he had gone to a poor team that built around him, I think so. But the player that I can't get out of my head that he really reminds me a lot of is a little bit taller. He seems a little bit more imposing in stature, but he reminds me a lot of Harrison Barnes. And I think a lot of people kind of roll their eyes at that, but like Harrison Barnes,
he has better hips.
Yes. No. Harrison Barnes is a little. Yeah, you're right on that. Harrison Barnes is a little more up and down and not gonna slash or really get around picks all that well. He's not as squiggly. Hips is probably the more apt way to put it. But Barnes, listen, for all the crap that Harrison Barnes has gotten in his career, because he never really fulfilled that ridiculous potential I think a lot of people had labeled him to have. But
by the way, yet another post LeBron James, next LeBron James.
Yeah,
or really, he was like the next like Kobe, I guess. But
yeah, but even that,
he was also like very clearly in his class the number one player from freshman year all the way up to senior year. His brand, like the Harrison Barnes brand, was a thing for a while. Like
I don't remember that.
Definitely.
Just smiling and being a nice guy. Is that the brand?
Yeah, like it was a thing where like he was very conscious of his brand. And
he's too smart for his own good. Like really, he's one of those guys who honestly is. He's hyper self-conscious. Nothing. Harrison, but you have to remember Harrison. Like for all the crap that he got in regards to what happened in Golden State and missing all those shots in the finals, he had a really good year out on max contract for Dallas last year.
Yeah, no, he was awesome. He averaged over 20 points a game, was one of the most efficient ISO scorers in the league. Not a disaster defender. Better at defending big than defending small, to be sure, but still a useful defender, at least a useful piece defensively.
Yeah. So, I mean, if that's the comparison, I just think, and that's the comparison I have. I'm not sure, if you agree with that or not, but that's a really solid player, and that's enough to solidify him over, kind of a volatile prospect like Lonzo Ball.
I think he's going to be a better scorer than Harrison is. I do.
I agree with that.
Yeah, he can just kind of do more with the ball because he has better hips. His hips are more fluid. He can open his hips quicker. He can, and that actually matters in terms of being able to get your defender like off of his balance, because it allows you to create more shot fakes. It allows you to kind of just do more in terms of the way that you handle the ball. It really does help a lot to have those hips, and that's the one thing that Barnes has always lacked, I think. If he had more fluid hips, you'd be talking about a guy that was going to be able to average like 25 to 28 a game.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we think that he can be a better scorer than Harrison Barnes. I agree with everything you've said there. We also thought that Harrison Barnes would be a better scorer than Harrison Barnes. So we'll see how it goes. But if that's his...
By the way, entering a very similar situation to what Harrison Barnes did now. I mean, when the Warriors drafted Barnes, obviously they were not nearly as good. But by the time Barnes' second year rolled around, they were at the beginning of this dynastic Warriors that we've come to know. So it's really tricky to kind of judge how these guys that come into better teams, how to evaluate them, I think.
And let's also refer to him by his proper title, which is Olympic gold medalist Harrison Barnes.
You're goddamned right. That is the only way to refer to him. I wonder if he's going to be on the next Olympic team.
I doubt it very, very much. But, hey, never know.
Who knows who drops out?
I mean, maybe LeBron will keep playing until he's 50 just for fun. Like, he only plays Olympic basketball.
Let's move on. Let's talk about another rookie here, the second to last rookie in this class that we have. At number 11, we have Josh Jackson from the Phoenix Suns. Josh is a guy that, again, opinions kind of run the gamut on him. Some people really believe in him as a scorer. Some people think the jump shot's going to come around. Some people think that he can be an all-star level defender. Some people think that the jump shot's never going to come around and that he makes a ton of mental errors and that ultimately he's just never going to reach the ceiling that he's capable of. I think that a lot of that is fair. The downside with him is certainly lower than the downside for Jayson Tatum, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
At the end of the day, though, what Josh Jackson can do, and actually, now that I think about it, I should probably flip these two because I think I had Jayson Tatum number 2 and Josh Jackson.
I was
3.
about to wonder. I was looking at this. It's like, I mean, I feel like we really talked up Jayson Tatum here, and like, I know you're a little bit higher on Jackson than I am, and that doesn't mean this list is wrong, but I'm not really sure where you're going with this. I think Tatum's a better player than Jackson.
Yeah, no, I should have Jayson Tatum 1 ahead of Josh Jackson. I definitely had Jayson Tatum ahead of Josh Jackson.
Let's explain why Josh Jackson isn't as good as Jayson Tatum, and let's explain what makes him better than Lonzo Ball.
Yeah, we're going to have Jayson Tatum at number 11, Josh Jackson at number 12.
Okay, so what makes Jackson better than Ball, I think, starting off, is the fact that he can influence the game in so many ways.
Athleticism.
And that it's just insane athleticism, a lot of different positions, plays above the rim. Defensively, you have to like his potential for versatility at this juncture. I don't know if we've seen it manifest yet, but I mean, he's going to be a guy who can at minimum guard 3 positions, has a very slight chance to guard 5, probably is going to be a 4 position guarder.
With Josh, I do worry about the skinny frame a little bit. I think he's definitely going to be able to guard 1 through 3. I definitely don't think he's going to be able to guard 5s at all. He is a crazy person that will like legitimately try and like get in those 5s his ass, but I think that he's probably a little too skinny to deal with them.
I think you're right. At the same time, I'm usually I err more on the side of guys are going to get smaller. That there aren't as many, to use your term from earlier, unicorns, and that ultimately, there's going to be a lot of guys who don't have the strength and incredible defensive acumen of a Draymond Green, who are just about Draymond Green sized and probably lighter, like center going forward. So I'll always err on the side of 5s are going to be like 6'9" and 240 pounds in the year 2020. I mean, like that, it's until proven wrong, and I'm probably going to be wrong, but like that's where my head's at. So. But you see this crazy athleticism with him. You see his ability to play above the rim. And the way he influences games, he's a really good passer, I think, for his lack of a jump shot at all. Like the fact that he has no threat, he can still influence the game on the offensive side to a degree.
Oh, for sure. He's so athletic. He can handle the ball. He's an awesome passer. He's definitely an influential offensive player, and he's a good off-ball cutter. Can handle in pick and rolls, can handle off of handoff plays. I don't really have any worries except the jump shot offensively. Like, he has great IQ. I think he can influence the game in the right ways.
This dude can't shoot a lick, though.
Yeah, the shooting is equally as big a problem as what I think a lot of people were concerned about. He shot the ball 6 different ways at Summer League. Like, the release point was all over the place. Like, he'd bring like the ball up like under his chin and like kind of fling it sometimes. He would bring it like closer to his eye and then like kind of again fling it, I guess is the best way to put it.
There's nothing smooth.
No consistency.
There's nothing organized about it. It looks like he's got the shooting stroke of like a 5, like a 5th grader. You just kind of waiting.
And like the key for him has always been he's such a good athlete that he can kind of like almost realign himself in midair and like kind of make, as long as his lower half is under him, he can kind of like align himself in midair to where the jump shot can like kind of come together. But the lower half it's inconsistent. Like when he knocked down shots this year at Kansas, which he actually did at a reasonable rate. I think he shot like 37% from 3.
He had a nice little stretch there.
Yeah. The key is always with him is rhythm. Like, as long as the energy comes up from the lower half, he gets, in a solid, like actually balanced base. And
balance is key.
Lets the energy come up through his upper half. He's just so athletic and so fluid and has such good coordination that he can make shots. Like, he just kind of has that ability, but it's whenever he starts to get off balance and whenever he starts just kind of chucking up shots and whenever he starts, getting out of rhythm, that the ball's going to go everywhere. It'll go every which way and every which direction that he wants it or needs it to go. And, that's a problem. The full-on inconsistency on the move is a major problem for him. I think catch and shoot stuff, he can probably be okay.
Yeah, no, I think he should be okay.
But it's the other stuff. Yeah. It's the other shooting that's going to be a question.
My biggest concern with him is I think balance was the right term, and I have this written down on my notepad. Like, he's so athletic, it almost might feel to him, and this is not an issue that I personally have, even as a terrible jump shooter. It's that he's so athletic, it almost might feel as if you're trying to curtail his athleticism by making him come up in a balanced, sort of tight, uniform manner. That it's not. He's such a explosive, athletic player that sort of doing something in this rote, very clean and efficient manner, it doesn't really jive with the rest of his game, really.
Yeah, I mean, his game is so predicated upon his instincts. Like, he is such an incredibly instinctual player that it's so tricky to really make it all come together in a cogent manner when it comes to jump shooting. And
it makes it really fun. It makes it fun to watch him. He's chaos on the court, and he's going to get 5-by-5 games in the NBA.
But this is, again, why he's such a bad foul shooter, too, because that kinetic energy that he kind of needs doesn't happen on the foul line. So he struggles to gain that rhythm. He struggles to gain that, the energy coming up through the lower half that he needs.
He's a kinetic player, and it's noted that when he was at his best, you said at Kansas, he was a rhythm shooter. Well, that's because there's a flow to that. Yeah. There's no flow to standing at the free throw line, bending your knees, bending your wrist and putting the ball through the basket with your elbow tight. Like, there's no flow to that. That's you can develop it, but that is a finite, minute, mechanical process. There's nothing mechanical about this guy whatsoever.
No, there's really not. And it's really incredible that he has gotten to where he is, because the reason that he has is because he has the strongest motor in this draft class.
No question.
He plays just so fucking hard on the floor, and the combination of his motor and his just ridiculous athleticism, like the combination of explosiveness, quickness, as well as just awesome hand-eye coordination, it's a really rare combination to have all three of those things. So even if he doesn't have that jump shot, it still just comes together in a way that really works. And he's going to be the perfect pair for the guy that's actually next on our list, number 10, and Devin Booker, because he's going to be able to defend. He's going to be able to, get out in transition. He's going to be able to, kind of create and handle the ball in transition. He's going to be able to really, really pass the ball. He's going to be able to find Devin Booker wide open for threes. Once the defense collapses, he's going to make the defense collapse. He can do so many different things. And with Devin Booker on the floor, and with maybe Marquise Chris, if he can learn to shoot, and some of the other guys they have who can actually shoot the ball a little bit, his shooting might be mitigated a little bit by his surroundings. And that would be really, really big for them, I think.
It's interesting. We'll get into Booker here in a second, but one thing I wanted to bring up, there's a lot of, and this isn't the correct body type, but Josh Jackson reminds me a lot of another guy on this list, and Aaron Gordon, because Gordon has never put it together with his ability. He just can't shoot, and it's gotten a little better, but he really needs to make a massive leap this next year, and we talked about this in the first podcast. Jackson has, I think, a lot more potential than Gordon did, just because Jackson, I think he's more physically built to fit in the modern NBA.
Well, it's easier to fit in the way that Jackson fits in as a 2-3 than it is when you're position locked as a 4. It's just easier to fit like players around you to make your weaknesses mitigated.
So that's a bonus, but we all know that if Aaron Gordon starts knocking down threes, let's just pretend like Aaron Gordon figured out the secret over the summer, and he starts knocking down threes at like 38-40%, it's game over.
Yeah.
It's game over, because now you have to guard him from 27 feet out, and it's like, well, how the hell, you can't keep him in front of you. He's a wrecking ball. This is the same thing that goes, if Josh Jackson can learn to hit down, I'm not even saying the 3-point shot, if he can knock down a 15-footer reliably, if he can knock down free throws at like 70 to 75%, I think we're already early in his career. It's game over.
Yeah,
because he will be able from 15 feet in to do whatever the hell he wants offensively because of that motor, and he's going to be a plus defensive player just because of his effort. So
let's bring up the defense real quick, because this year he was a very polarizing defensive player for a lot of people. There were games where he just got flat out burnt. Like there was a game against West Virginia where the guy he was guarding, and there were multiple of them throughout the game, like he gave up like 25, 26 points because it's really easy to kind of get him out of position, or at least it was at Kansas, because he's so hyper aggressive all the time. And fouling can be a little bit of an issue for him as well. I'll be interested to see how that adjusts to the next level, because he has all of the tools and all of the motor and all of the athleticism and the instincts to be like an all defense level team member, but they haven't come together yet. He needs to kind of add that modicum of polish. He needs to add that. He really just needs to kind of temper his game a little bit in a way that sometimes it's not.
In a lot of different areas. I mean, that goes back to the jump shot. If he can temper his athleticism and stay contained on the jump shot, he can be a good he has all the tools to do it. He just needs to get into into a form, and he needs to rebuild. I when I was living in LA, I rebuilt my golf swing. And I spent a lot of time, that was pretty much all I did in terms of free time. And I spent a lot of time just on video, just minute by minute. And eventually it just locks in. And you don't do all the wild stuff that you were doing before. And it'll be interesting to see. I'm fascinated to see how the Suns coaching staff handles that. Yeah. Because they kind of got a ready-made guy in Devin Booker, the next guy on this list, in terms of just having a scorer. I haven't seen a lot of development in a lot of other areas on that team. And Devin Booker ain't going to do it alone.
Yeah. So just to recap, Josh Jackson at number 12, Jayson Tatum at number 11, because I'm an idiot and don't remember how to list things properly.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Number 10, Devin Booker. Booker is one of the more polarizing players around the league, it seems like now. 22 points a game, 36% from three, but honestly a much better shooter than that just because he takes terrible shots. 3 assists per game. Atrocious defender right now. Really just irredeemable defensively at the moment. Maybe he can become an average defender, but it's hard to see that right now, given what the starting place is. Ton of minutes per game. Like he's playing more than he should be playing, to be quite clear. Overall, where are we at with Devin Booker? Where do we think he should be higher on this list? Because I would imagine that we're going to say some names coming up here, particularly the one at number 7, and I think people are going to be like, what are you doing? Why do you have Devin Booker lower than this?
No, Devin Booker is a one-trick pony.
I don't even know that it's one trick right now, because he's a really good shooter, and he's really developed as a creator on the ball. And he can really create off the ball as well with the ability to run off screens. He's a complete scorer and a complete offensive weapon because he can pass it now, too.
I don't buy into the passing as much as others.
His middle name is Armani, damn it.
Okay, cool. That doesn't mean that he's going to be this, excellent facilitator. This motherfucker can score, though. I mean, that doesn't come as a surprise. There's not a lot of guys in the NBA who could drop 70.
No.
Period. I guess the Warriors have 3. The Cavs, so long as they have Kyrie, have 2. Like, Kevin Love ain't scoring 70 a game.
No, he's not.
I mean, there's just not. I mean, even James Harden, I don't know if he can drop 70 in a game.
Harden can drop 70.
I mean, he could. This is well, I don't know. I mean, what was his? Did Harden get 60 at all? He didn't get 60 last year. He had a 50 game, didn't he?
Yeah, but he was also facilitating and playing point guard. Like if they ran him off the ball totally, didn't have another ball dominant player with him.
Well, we're about to find out this year.
Well, he has a ball dominant player with him though. He's still not going to drop 70.
Maybe Chris Paul just makes it his mission one night to get him 70.
That'd be awesome.
I'm trying
to think. Is there anyone else? Do we think anyone else could drop 70?
Okay, let's just run through. I mean, I don't think anyone in the Southeast. I mean, the list starts with LeBron James.
I mean, Russell Westbrook can.
Russell Westbrook could.
Russell Westbrook can 100% drop 70 in a game.
Okay. I'll give you right. I would like to just state this right now. It is so hard to drop 70.
It's so hard. It's incredibly difficult.
You have to be not only prolific but also like hyper efficient.
Yes. And by the way, the second part of that does not apply to Devin Booker, which we'll get to in a second.
Correct. But he was so prolific. He shot so many times. So like, okay, fine. I will give you Westbrook because I can't argue against that. Harden. Yes.
Isaiah Thomas.
Yes.
I think that he maybe could. Probably could.
He probably
But like
could.
here's the thing though. If Devin Booker can do it, I think that all of these guys can probably do it. Like
okay, I'm saying there's like 10 dudes.
Scenarios, like I think that they could do it. Like Kawhi Leonard, I think if you told Kawhi to run out there and shoot 45 times,
I don't know.
I think he dropped 70. One game out of 82.
Okay. I think the point stands though that Devin Booker
could do it.
Who could?
Damian Lillard.
Yes, Damian Lillard is written down. Yeah, he is absolutely on that list. Yeah. In fact, he'd probably be number one on my list other than Clay to do it because Clay can go on one of those runs.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just something that like you can't, for all of Devin Booker's flaws, and there are many, so many flaws, the dude gets buckets. It's the name of the game.
And that's incredibly important.
Right. And so if you can get one other dude on that team, I don't know if he's playing in the right era of basketball. I don't know if, he has any more in him other than perhaps becoming a better facilitator and moving the ball away from him. Not that he really should, because no one else on that team can put the ball in the hoop. I don't know where Devin Booker goes from here. He might have already peaked, to be honest. That said, pretty impressive offensive peak.
Yeah, like the question is, if you would replace, let's say, if you would put Jabari Parker in Phoenix right now, gave him 28% usage, do you think he would be an above average efficiency player?
Yeah, that's tough just because of all the Jabari injuries and stuff, and that's tough.
I think he probably would. The injuries scare me, and that's why I can't really put him ahead of Devin Booker, because as an asset, I think that Parker probably is a better asset, but it's really tricky to try and figure out, okay, how much of this is situation where Devin Booker gets to just run around like a chicken with his head cut off and shooting. No,
totally. There's a lot of that. But you know what? There's a lot of teams that would love to have one guy like that.
And there's also the fact that it's really hard to get off 18 shots a game.
Right. Like that's
just
the thing.
Really hard.
We're not playing in, the illegal defense era. Like they can just double team you. There's no harm in doing that, especially when you're surrounded by other guys who can't make buckets. So being able to get off of, listen, we preach efficiency all day, every day, but being able to get up shots is a skill, and a skill that you need to have in this NBA. That doesn't mean that all of the shots are good ones. Lord knows that Devin Booker takes a lot of bad shots, but he's able to get them off. And, that's not something that every, good scorer in this league has.
Yeah, I think that playing next to both Eric Bledsoe, hopefully, and Josh Jackson will probably allow him to take more threes, and hopefully those threes will be a little bit less contested than they typically are. Just getting another creator in there, I think, is really valuable for him.
Here's the thing. I don't see Devin Booker moving up this list. I don't. I can see him going down real fast.
He'll be on it next year.
Right, he'll be on it. I can see him moving down. I just don't. I really do think that he's near his ceiling, and that's fine. He's maximized that potential, and I think that he's been a lot better than anyone thought he was going to be.
Like, could he average 27 a game this year?
I just don't think he has the guys around him. I don't think he's that good. he's offensively gifted enough to get off the shot, but I don't think he's good enough to put the percentages up that are necessary.
Yeah, I mean,
by his own fault and by others.
Yeah, I would guess he's probably in a very similar spot next year to where he is on this list.
Yeah, you might as well lock him in at this number.
Yeah,
because there's going to be some guys that are above him that we're going to be a little bit wrong on.
But he's already just too good to have like a ton lower. Like he's already, a slightly inefficient 22-point a game scorer.
He's really good at doing the most important thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we can. One of the biggest issue with Devin Booker was that he was a surprise, and no one actually watched him, and they saw that he was putting up these mad numbers on NBA on Bleacher Report highlights, and so everyone's like, oh man, Devin Booker could be the next thing. He could be the next thing. He's going to turn into like Klay Thompson 2.0. No, he isn't.
Yeah, he's not as good not nearly as good defensively, really.
He's not even in the same stratosphere defensively. Klay is like one of the 3 or 4 best on-ball defenders in the NBA, and Devin Booker couldn't guard a 50-year-old man. So, that's not a problem, though.
But he's a better passer than Klay is. Like, who do you think is a better offensive player right now?
Klay.
I think it's close. I think it's really close.
It's pretty close. It's pretty close. But
it's probably Klay because of the shooting efficiency, but I think it's close.
But here's the thing with that. Like, I think Klay is just wickedly underrated. But that comes from the fact that he is one of the best offensive players in the league. Not like, some world changer on the offensive, but he's also one of the best defensive players in the league.
Right.
That's very important. Devin Booker is one of the best offensive players in the league. Yeah, there are some, wrinkles and moles on his game, and we can nitpick, but he's one of the best offensive players in the league. And he's a terrible defensive player. Yeah. That doesn't mean that he's a bad player. It only means that you had mismanaged expectations because it went from 0 to 100 and it never got down to the right level.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is the right spot for Devin Booker. I agree.
I would take him over every other player on this list right now. I would take him over them.
Given what he's shown already, like, you can't have him below Jayson Tatum. You can't have him below.
There's only
like
one.
We had that thing where
one rookie and one sort of rookie.
Like we talked about D'Angelo Russell in the last one. Like
D'Angelo Russell could jump him, but he isn't better than Devin Booker today.
Not right now, and they're the same age, so it makes it like if you're the same age as someone and you're not as good as someone.
Yeah, let's not forget Devin Booker's a baby.
Right, like he just had his 20-year-old season. Like, he is still 20 years old right now.
A lot of potential here, but I do think he's...
just athletically, what more does he have? Like, he's not this, like, nuclear athlete. He's a good athlete that's improving, but he's not, like, a crazy athlete. He is a guy who gets by on pure skill, and, I guess Stephen Curry has shown us that pure skill can go a long, long way.
Yeah.
But I don't know how much more it's going to take Devin Booker either.
But, like, he legitimately shot the same field goal percentage from his rookie season to this year. He just shot the ball 8 more times per game.
Yeah.
I mean, he made half a 3 more per contest, but he also shot, one more 3 per contest. Like, I think he can get his field goal percentage to 45% and his 3-point shooting percentage to just maybe 38 or 39%. He can be a 25 point per game player. I mean, that would be a 25 to 27 point per game player in the NBA. I don't see him getting above that because if he's above that, then it doesn't matter how bad he is at defense.
Yeah.
Kyrie Irving sucks at defense. He would be very high on this list.
We are approaching the point, though, where it really doesn't matter how good Devin Booker is on defense.
We're close.
Like, we are close.
If he can make those modest but significant leaps, I think we can have a conversation, a very serious conversation about it doesn't matter how bad he is on defense. We're not there yet.
And it matters. Like, it always matters how bad someone is on defense, but at the same time, like, we mean that when putting him on a list like this, the defensive ability is just so overwhelmed by the offensive ability.
It's called the KYRIE territory. It is the area in which you can do whatever the hell you want on one side of the court because you can do whatever the hell you want on the other side.
Yeah, and he's getting there. It's close.
He's close.
I would still have him, like you said, ahead of everyone that has been below him. The only exception being healthy Jabari Parker.
Isaiah Thomas is also part of the KYRIE territory as well.
James Harden, too. Like, there are a lot of examples of these guys where...
These are thresholds.
He's close. Ability is just too overwhelming.
He's close. He's 21 years old. We'll see.
Yeah. Like, I would... If Jabari Parker is healthy, I would take Jabari over him.
Yeah.
And D'Angelo Russell's in a better situation now.
But all of these things are true, but Devin Booker still gets buckets.
But Devin Booker gets buckets, and it's impossible to overlook what he's done at this stage, even if there are glaring weaknesses that will continue to bear themselves out in all likelihood.
The next 3 years will, and it's ironic for a guy as young as him. It's ironic that he might be approaching his ceiling, but that just shows. One trick pony was probably an oversimplistic way to put it, but that just sort of shows where his game is. He has game, possibly elite game right now, very good game in one area.
Yeah,
we'll see.
I'd go a little bit further than that, but I know what you mean. We'll
see if he can add, diversify that portfolio a little bit. But right now, he's got one really well performing stock. So,
yeah, you're not totally off there, I guess. Let's talk about a guy that was drafted, I believe, 2 picks ahead of him in the 2015 NBA draft. Myles Turner comes in at number 9 on our list. Turner is in a really interesting spot because he just lost his entire team. They're building totally around Myles Turner at this stage, but he's 7 foot tall. He averages about 15 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 blocks a game. That's really, really incredibly valuable. He does it efficiently in 18.5 PER, a 58.5 true shooting percentage that is about 3 points above league average. He shot 35% from 3 on, albeit limited attempts, but he's able to space the floor and be incredibly valuable in that way. Overall, I am a fan of what Myles Turner brings to the table. I think that the ceiling offensively is considerably higher. This is another kid that is incredibly intelligent. Just like you speak to him and feel overwhelmed intelligence-wise. And I think both of us are pretty smart guys. You talk to him and you're just like, wow, this guy is incredibly smart. He's going to keep working on his game. Totally has revamped the way that he runs even. He gets that minute in terms of detail on his game.
Which sometimes that backfires on guys. Sometimes these guys are so smart. Harrison Barnes is a guy who's kind of like this. He's so hyper conscious. He's really intelligent, and he's hard on himself. And so he tries to fix all of these little minute details. It seems that Myles Turner is in a really good emotional place that maybe, this sounds really negative.
No,
but
emotional intelligence is incredibly important.
That he's capable of self-correcting, being self-critical, all of these things without allowing it to take away from his confidence.
Yes.
That doesn't seem to be an issue yet. That he's a happy-go-lucky guy. I've talked to him a couple times. He is blinding. This kid is just charisma.
Yep.
And I can see why the Pacers want to build around him. They probably could have done a little better. But right now, I think last year was just sort of the tip of the iceberg. We really didn't get. He started 30 games his rookie year, and you saw it a little bit, but it's kind of a constipated situation. He was, getting kind of scrub minutes. He did put up some decent numbers, but it's the little things like averaging an assist 0.3 per game, and a steal, and 2 blocks, and 7 rebounds.
He's not an amazing passer, but
no,
in terms of creating for others, but he makes the right pass. You know what I mean? I think it's telling that the Pacers' assist percentage went up 7 points when he was on the floor than when he was off the floor.
And he sees over.
Unselfish.
He does not. He is going to run the play as it should be run. Yeah. And if that means that somebody else is going to get the shot, so be it. He doesn't care about that kind of stuff. It's clear that he doesn't. I would like to see him take more shots.
Oh, I think we're going to see that this year.
Yeah. So there is. You mentioned it. I think that there's a very big concern that now they're going to try to turn him into this volume scorer big man. I don't know if his game is necessarily built for that.
I'll be interested to see how that goes because they just don't have any other options. So who are they going to go through? They kind of have to go through him. So
no, totally.
Some quick numbers on him just in general. The Pacers were 5.5 points better offensively, 3 points better defensively with him on the floor last year. For second-year centers, that's pretty rare to just be that good and be that effectual on the basketball floor. We already kind of went through what his numbers look like personally. But the way he fixed the game in terms of a team concept as, I guess you could say he was the second or third best player on that Pacer team that made the playoffs. It's really impressive that he's able to affect the game in the wide variety of ways that he affects the game at such an early age. The question for him is always going to be lateral agility, I think. Mm-hmm. Is he going to be like... You're never going to take him off the floor late in games, I don't think. Like, I think you're always going to just kind of roll with him as he continues to mature. Like, obviously, they occasionally did it when he was 20, 21 years old. But, like, as he grows into his stardom and grows into his own game, I don't think he's slow enough to where you're going to want to take him off the floor. But I do think that it could slightly hinder his defensive ability from, as a rim protector, being a potential all-defense team member down to just something like as an above-average defender.
Yeah, it's he's not a game changer on that end of the court. He's a nice big body.
To be sure.
Not yet. I don't see it, to be honest with you.
I
but
agree.
He could add a lot of polish to that end and, you know, outperform that expectation. But athletically speaking, I don't see him. You know, he doesn't play above the rim, even for a huge guy. He really doesn't. So
he just does due to length. You know what I mean? Like,
no,
but leaper, but he plays above the rim.
There's no explosiveness in those legs, really.
Right.
He's a little bit of a plotter.
I don't even know if he's just stiff. You know what I mean? Like, he's just a little bit stiff, which isn't.
He had to relearn. I mean, who amongst us hasn't had to relearn how to run? I mean, so
yeah, like. This is stuff, though, that I think as he continues to age and, as we talked about, continues to work his ass off on his game, like, and like his lower half continues to fill out in terms of strength and his overall, you know, frame matures into what it can be. This is all stuff that can get better. Like, the guy one of the guys who was at the top of our list, had to learn basically how to become a more explosive athlete as his body filled out. And it wouldn't surprise me if, you know, Myles Turner added a little bit of athleticism as he aged, but we just haven't seen it yet. And I think that's what keeps him at number 9 on this list, as opposed to like number 6 with all of the other elite centers.
No, I mean, here's the thing though. He's offensively, you know, how old is he? 20, 21?
He is 21 years old.
21. He's a 21-year-old who scores at, you know, from the hoop and out to the 3-point line. I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up taking, you know, 2 or 3 3-pointers per game this year, and he knocked them down.
Have to.
No, I know.
So much of it with him comes down to he is about to take a big step forward in a big way because he needs to.
Yeah, but if, you know, he might be in an environment where he's not ready for that sort of responsibility yet. And how does he respond to that? Ultimately, as just a center prospect, just say prospect, given that he's 21 years old.
Sure.
Wow. Just, you know, he's not going to be, you know, some of these guys at the top of the list where he's going to be just a world-beating game changer on both ends of the court. But he has the chance to be an elite offensive center and an average defensive center.
And by the way, like,
who's turning that down?
He is a game changer at the rim defensively. Like, let's not sugarcoat that. Like, he was second in the NBA in block percentage this year. He is a legitimate game changer at the rim defensively.
At the rim, but he's not somebody that you can keep on the court in all situations.
Not quite yet. No.
Not quite yet. And I think it's going to take a pretty significant athletic leap, which is something I guess he's shown he's capable of doing. Not a lot of guys are. To be able to, you know, space the floor or you know, deal with space floor on the defensive end the same way he spaces the floor on the offensive end.
Yeah.
That's a jump. That's a big jump. If he doesn't develop it, that doesn't mean that he's a bad player. It's just like that's what's separating him from being a hyper superstar elite talent.
Right
now he is probably a all-star next year, if not for the fact that he's going to play for a shit team.
He's a top 50 player in the NBA next year, I think.
I think he could be higher than that. I think he could be a top 30 player in the NBA next year. And the thing that's separating him from,
I mean, so here's what I'll say to that. If he is a top 30 player in the NBA next year and is 21 years old, we have to move him way up this list.
Okay.
Like, we have to move him way up.
that is a 5-hour long conversation that I'm sure we can have at another time as to how we view that list that you got in your head and I got in my head. Point is, wherever he's at, he's still in the upper echelon of players. But when we take quadrants and we turn them into, 8 tranches of players, he's not in that. I don't think he's in the first. He's definitely not in the number 1 tranche, and he's right on that border between 2 and 3 right now. So that he can make the jump and stay in that 2, get to the top end of that, that second rate, those star players. But if he's to be a superstar, and offensively he might have to make that jump to superstar, but he's also going to have to do it on the defensive end, and that's going to take a pretty big jump. I don't know if he's got it in him, but I'd bet on him.
I will say this. I will be surprised if he is an all-star next year. We have 2 guys ahead of him on this list in the Eastern Conference at center. There's Hassan Whiteside. There's Andre Drummond. Who else am I forgetting? There are probably a couple of other players.
Right now,
but
let's just
center, or Al Horford's another one. Al Horford, you absolutely have to talk about too.
No, that's true. I mean,
there's 5 guys
really
ahead of him in the pecking order.
Conversation to be had with Andre Drummond as compared to Myles Turner, and obviously potential comes in massively with that. But that's a whole thing.
I would absolutely take Myles Turner over Andre Drummond, no question.
Right? Would you take? What about for 1 year?
Probably Turner. I think I would probably take
Turner. That's pretty telling.
Yeah.
That doesn't say a lot about Andre Drummond. I agree. I agree that I would lean towards, in this upcoming season, taking Myles Turner over Andre Drummond.
Where would we have Drummond on this list?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would have him.
Would the Mavericks trade Dennis Smith for him?
No, just because of what the vacuum. No.
Would the Kings trade De'Aaron Fox for him?
No, but you know where I stand on De'Aaron Fox. I'm all in. I think that he's above Jonathan Isaac for sure, and I think he's probably above Jamal Murray.
Yeah.
I can make the argument that he's just below Jabari Parker and just above Brandon Ingram.
Yeah, would the Bucks trade Jabari Parker for him?
No.
I don't know.
No.
Probably not. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that Drummond has some work to do on his game. That could be a bad contract.
Oh yeah. Oh, we're already talking about that.
Yeah, we could really be in a bad place there with Drummond. Let's move on though. Let's talk about what for me was the hardest guy to find a spot for on this list. It shouldn't really come as a surprise though, given the complexities of his game as well as missing an entire year last year. Ben Simmons comes in at number 8 for me. I really struggle with Simmons because I think that he's obviously an incredible talent. The things that he can do at his size are basically impossible in some ways, like his overall basketball sense, his ability to pass the ball out of the high post, his ability to pass the ball in transition, the ability to create as a scorer from the mid post, from the low post, from the wing, as a slasher. The fact that he's an unbelievable rebounder as well. He's kind of like he's coming into the NBA at 20 years old, like what Blake Griffin has evolved his game into almost, except with the ability to handle the ball in transition as opposed to being a lane filler in transition, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does.
In the half court, they're very similar in my mind.
It's hard. I just don't know. I mean, I don't know what Simmons is. You have a better idea of what Simmons is going to be than I do.
The lack of shooting throws everything for a loop, right? We don't know, A, if he's improved as a shooter over the course of the last year. I think it's possible. And B, if the shooting, given what is around him, is going to be a crippling issue. Because now they have Markelle Fultz, they have J.J. Redick, they have Robert Covington, they have Joel Embiid around him. All 4 of those guys can shoot the ball. And I would say that other than Covington, all 4 of those guys are going to be high-level shooters around him. Mm-hmm. So the floor spacing issue is really dampened with Ben Simmons, given the roster construction around him. And I think that's ultimately why I moved him a little bit higher on this list than where I originally kind of thought that he would slot in.
Where did you think he would originally slot in?
Probably below Devin Booker, to be honest. Just given what we've seen of Booker so far in his career, like given that, we're talking about a proven 20-point-a-game scorer in the NBA. But just what Simmons is capable of doing offensively, he can be a total offensive player. And he's a little bit more explosive athletically than I think he gets credit for. He is one of the most fluid athletes I've ever seen at 6'10". That comes without reservation.
Yeah,
now,
it's crazy.
Defensively, there are some concerns. He does have lateral quickness, but at LSU didn't give 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shits really defensively.
You don't say.
Yeah, did not care at all, and he just really needs to be an efficient defender. He needs to at least exert energy on the defensive side of the floor. He needs to at least be in the right position defensively. Now, having Joel Embiid behind him makes up for a lot of concerns, and having Robert Covington next to him, who was a borderline all-defense team member, makes up for a lot of concerns. But he has the potential to be a very switchable, useful defender. And I would like to see him kind of morph into that. In terms of his offensive game, unbelievable scorer around the rim, likes to use his right hand a little bit more than his left hand, actually. Right.
Even though he's a lefty.
Even though he shoots left-handed. I think he's actually right-handed, but shoots left-handed, which is weird. Free throw shooter, 67%. That's good enough for what he does. Unbelievable rebounder. Like I said, just has incredible rebounding instincts. Gets to the line like nobody's business. He accepts physicality. He embraces physicality. Unbelievable passer with skills. Gets into passing lanes and creates transition opportunities and odd man breaks, which for him is deadly because of his ability to start the break himself. Really a guy that you kind of have to build around in a lot of ways. Yeah. Just given the way that his skill set is and given the total lack of spacing that he could provide. But a player that the 76ers now have absolutely built around in a perfect way that is going to accentuate all of his skills and make him like this team with him and Markelle Fultz next year should be one of the best transition teams in the NBA.
No question.
And it's just a major question at this stage. I don't know exactly what to expect. I think he's a 4. I
think he's a 4 too. You know who doesn't think he's necessarily a 4?
Ben Simmons.
Yeah.
Ben Simmons thinks he's a 1. But the thing is, though, is that with Markelle Fultz, the reason that Fultz is such a good fit with that is that you can slide Fultz off the ball, and he'll be just as effective as he is on the ball. You can allow Ben Simmons to run some point guard and bring the ball up the floor if he wants. And I'm ultimately fine with that. I think that Simmons probably thinks he's a 1, but in reality he's a 4. But I don't know that it matters, except on defense. Offensively, it's not going to matter.
Yeah. So limitless upside on I think on both ends of the court.
Yeah.
That's what we're dealing with.
It's effort, man.
It's effort, and it's developing a shot, which I think I'm not concerned, frankly. A lot of other guys I'm pretty concerned about. I think it's difficult to teach shooting, a lot more difficult than I think it's let on. We can just teach them how to shoot. Oh, you mean the most intrinsic thing of the sport? Yeah. If you don't have at least some baseline by now, it's very hard to find that later.
You know what, though? We're going to talk about a guy next that has really improved as a shooter.
No, it's not to say that it can't happen. Clearly it can happen. There are countless examples of it. But we only remember the ones where it did. Mm-hmm. And we forget often all of the guys who came in, didn't know how to shoot, got out of the league because they couldn't shoot, even though there was some effort making it happen. Simmons is so athletic, and he has such great court vision. I mean, his sliders are off the charts that you just have to almost presume that he's going to be able to knock down some shots. I don't think he'll ever be a dead-eye shooter or anything, but I think he's going to be able to knock down shots at a more than respectable clip at the NBA level, and that's going to make him a elite offensive threat. That's it. We'll have to wait and see to find out, because we don't know what the hell he's going to be or how he's going to be used or anything like that. He is an enigma, but there is no reason to discount everything that was said about him going into last year's draft, which was that he is the first, the last, the everything in a shit draft. He is the only the only thing that is going to have, lasting a lasting legacy, if you will. That he was the number 1, the number 2, the number 3, and the number, all the way down to number 10.
Yeah. I will say this, like, there were some people who thought Brandon Ingram should go number 1.
No, those people were wrong.
I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I think that they're probably wrong. I would rather have Ben Simmons. But, there is a concern now that, okay, they have Markelle Fultz, who wants to be an alpha dog. They have Joel Embiid, who wants to be an alpha dog. If you guys haven't noticed yet, Ben Simmons is the 3rd guy on this list among that group. And he was a guy that at LSU came off to a lot of people as entitled, came off to a lot of people as a guy that, thought he was much better than everyone. And to be fair, he was much better than everyone. But at the same time, that could kind of infiltrate a little bit, and that worries me.
Yep, that's a problem. But that said, if he enjoys his, if he embraces being the quote unquote 3rd option, blinding possibilities.
Yep.
Because of his ability to pass, create shots, he's not going to get the defensive attention that he normally would get.
Yep.
I mean, stupefying possibilities.
Yeah. So the Sixers have 3 of the top 8 players on this list, as I mentioned, which is kind of.
We thought the Denver Nuggets were doing well when they landed 3 and at one point had 4. No, sir.
No.
It's all about the Sixers.
Let's talk about Andrew Wiggins here at number 7. Very polarizing player, maybe the most polarizing young player in the NBA, I think.
I thought this was an aggressive ranking. I'm interested to hear why you think. I mean, I get above Simmons, but there's some people that would have had him way lower. Why is he?
I think there are people who'd have him outside of the top 10. Sure.
I don't know where I fit on that, but I'm curious as to your thoughts.
So he is 21 years old, just turned 22. Averaged nearly 24 points a game as in his 21-year-old year. That's really good. That is really, really difficult to do. Really improved as a jump shooter this year, 35.6% from 3 on, I want to say, like 300 attempts. That's really good. I think it's going to fit really well with Jimmy Butler coming in this year as moving Wiggins off to a more catch and shoot, attack closeouts role, maybe occasionally get a post-up role. I would imagine he's not going to get 19 shots a game next year, but I would imagine he's going to get much less defensive attention than what he had last year.
Sure.
I believe in him as a catch-and-shoot player. Full stop. Like, I think he can catch and shoot. The question is, will he take that step back? Will he want to take that step back? Will he embrace becoming a better passer? Which has been a concern for some people, right around 2 assists per game, which whatever, right around 4 rebounds a game, which whatever. If he just starts embracing being more of an energy cutter, catch and shoot, attack closeouts guy who occasionally gets a post-up possession as like a small ballish 4, I think he can average 20 a game with relative efficiency. I think that is fully within the cards. Now, he was a guy that averaged his 24 a game, like Devin Booker, 2 percentage points below the average true shooting percentage. Right. Probably a little bit worse of a passer than Devin Booker. Similar level rebounders or whatever. Similar usage rates. They both like to have the ball in their hands. They both like to score. I think that Wiggins' athleticism provides for a higher defensive ceiling, even if we haven't quite seen that yet. I agree with that. Just the fact that he's 6'8" with a 7-foot wingspan, 7'1" wingspan, something like that, is as athletic as he is as quick as he is. I think that he can get there defensively. And in fact, I would bet on him getting there defensively at some point. The question is whether or not he's willing to buy into the team concept. And as a guy who's now going to be 22 years old this year, it's hard for me to say that a guy's not going to just buy in. I think it's unfair to assume that because he's been such a high usage player early in his career, he won't want to take a step back behind Jimmy Butler this year. Jimmy Butler is going to be a leader. Andrew Wiggins is going to be their 3rd best player this year. I think it's really going to help his game kind of taking that step back and being called upon to create less offense this year.
I thought it was interesting how you said if he's willing to take that role, because Wiggins' offensive game, as we've seen it to this point, is so similar to Jimmy Butler's. It's not going to jive. So one of the two is going to have to.
Jimmy's a lot better coming off of screens, though. Like Jimmy handles the ball and pick and roll a lot. Like he can be like a pseudo point guard, like next to Jeff Teague, I think. Wiggins is definitely more still of like a wing scorer than Jimmy is, you know.
Yeah, I see a lot of similarities in their offensive games, especially they like to get the ball at the free throw line extended, and jab step and slice and dice, and they have a lot of the tape looks very similar. Now obviously Jimmy's a more polished player than Andrew. That's just by age and stature, but one of the two is going to have to change, and it's going to be Wiggins. Yeah. Now.
I guess Wiggins did take 32% of his possessions last year as a pick and roll ball handler, so he did take quite a few. So you're right. They're definitely closer than they are separate.
And it's like eerie to the point of like same positioning, same sort of jab step move, like all this stuff. And it's like, listen, Lord knows I love me some Jimmy Butler, so I'm a big fan of that style of play. Wiggins, I agree with you. I think Wiggins as a catch and shoot guy could be deadly.
72nd percentile in catch and shoot jumpers, 56% effective field goal percentage.
Yeah. So enough said there. Will he take that role willingly? Will he slide into those responsibilities, or will it be this kind of begrudging thing? Will he hijack possessions so that he can play the old way?
Yeah.
I agree with you on the defensive end. Tom Thibodeau.
I will say this too. I think that he's going to get more possessions against bench players this year, which I think will help. You
think he'll anchor like a second unit with staggering?
That's what I would do if I was.
That's what I would do too. You know who doesn't really usually adhere to stuff like that?
Tom Thibodeau.
Yeah,
but like I would imagine that they're just going to have to do it sometimes to make it work.
Fair enough. The other thing with Thibodeau.
Because like they'll need to tie Jimmy Butler to Teague because he's a bad defender. They'll need to, they'll want to have Karl Towns just on the first unit. So if you're going to have a second unit guy, like who's going to be their second unit guy to create offense?
It might as well be Andrew Wiggins.
I think that's their best option at least. Whether or not that's what they do, we'll see. But like I think getting him, obviously a lot of offensive possessions as a first unit guy I think is going to be great, but also he can do his thing against second units more often now than against first units, and him and Jamal Crawford will probably like kind of take turns running second units, I would think.
Yeah, I mean I still love Wiggins' upside. I just don't, he's not the LeBron James kind of player, he's not the Michael Jordan kind of player, he's none of that. But Jimmy Butler, his new teammate, is a pretty viable comparison. And Jimmy Butler, MVP candidate. So
yeah, he was an All-NBA player last year. Or was he an All-NBA player? He should have been if he wasn't.
Well, yeah, Jimmy Butler is perennially, save for last year when the Bulls sucked, an NBA, Jimmy Butler should be in the conversation for NBA MVP every year because of what he was able to do for the Bulls. I don't know if he'll be in that stratosphere this year with so much talent on the Wolves, but there's going to be a lot of transition for Andrew Wiggins. He could thrive under this new environment, this new paradigm, or he could want the hell out.
It's a big year. It's a very important year for Andrew Wiggins in that capacity. He really needs to. It's hard to say that a guy that just averaged 24 points a game as a 21-year-old really needs to take a step back, but he does need to take a step back this year and just kind of like
one step forward, one step back, 2 steps ahead.
That's what it would be. That's exactly what it would be. It would be one step back followed by a big step ahead efficiency-wise. And I think that if he would if he'd shoot 50% from the field, which I think is doable on lower attempt rates, right around 36% again from 3, and do his typical 76 to 77% from the foul line, that'd be a great year. He'd average 20 points a game, everyone would be real excited about Andrew Wiggins again, and we'd be in good shape. I think.
Hope we're in that position.
I do too. I don't know if we will be, but we'll see.
We'll see.
He's in a tough spot. So the other thing with Wiggins, though, too, that I will mention is that he kind of falls into that Devin Booker thing, where I think a lot of people just kind of underrate the usage and the fact that he can get up that many shots at such a young age that are relatively efficient.
Right.
And kind of talk about it at the expense of efficiency. I think they go hand in hand, and I think that as Wiggins ages, he will continue to be more efficient. It's very difficult to do what he's done at the age that he has accomplished it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's another one of these situations where the expectations were preposterously high, perhaps.
Yeah.
And so, he's just not going to be an incendiary shooter. And he's not going to be.
And he just shot 36% from three, though. Like, I don't think he's a 40%
a really good offensive player. He's not going to be a blindingly good offensive player. He holds on to the ball too long. He's not quick release fire. He's not as fun to watch. He doesn't have the highlight, real explosiveness that many thought he might have. Like, he's awesome. He's a really good player, but he's a pro. He's kind of always had a pro game, and that just isn't in the House of Highlights era. That's not as fun.
Yeah, I mean, he's still going to have those highlights. Like, he had that ridiculous dunk last year, but I think you're kind of right. I don't know. We'll see. I think that if you had to guess over under 2.5 All-Star games for Andrew Wiggins, what would you guess?
Ooh.
This is something I threw to Zach Harper a while ago on the podcast. And
over under 2.5. 2.5 is a big, bold number. I think it's going to be really hard for the Minnesota Timberwolves to have
three
All-Stars. So I'm going to go under.
Yeah. I think based on merit, I would bet over.
Man, age 25 to 30, you can get 5 right there.
Yep. Yeah, I think I would bet over still on 2.5 All-Star games for Wiggins. Yeah. Let's move on. Let's talk about Markelle Fultz at number 6. Second Philadelphia 76er in the top 8. Fultz is just the most complete player offensively in this draft. 23 points a game, 5.5 assists per game, 5.5 rebounds per game. First player in a quarter century to do that in college basketball, and he did it as an 18-year-old. That's really good. He is able to score at all 3 levels. Unbelievable passer. Washington shooting like 31% from 3 around him really hurt his assist numbers this year. I think that they would be much higher if he was in a real situation. Defensively, not very good. Shows good timing instincts, but not great overall defensive instincts. Just doesn't really care, I guess, is the best way to put it defensively, which is a recurring theme with young players.
I like his defensive upside. I think...
well, he's 6'4" with like a 6'10" wingspan. He's athletic. He can do some stuff.
I think he could be a pretty damn good defensive player if he gave a shit.
Well, yeah, it's always if he gave.
It's a shocking statement.
Yeah, like that's what it always is. Like, athletic guys that are long can be good defenders, but what if he's James Harden defensively? Like, it is what it is. But if he's James Harden, then no one's going to give a shit. So overall, I'm a big fan of Fultz. Like I said, within the Simmons, portion of this discussion, I'm a big fan of the fit with Ben Simmons. I think that those two can kind of take turns playing point guard. Fultz can play off the ball when Simmons wants to handle. When Fultz wants to handle, Simmons can be a really good screen and roll diver for him. And he can be a really good screen and short roll guy who can make passes to Embiid outside or wrap around passes to Embiid around the rim. There's a lot that Brett Brown is going to be able to do this year with this Philadelphia roster due to the way that Fultz complements their stars. Yeah.
I do find it interesting, and this is something that we should probably talk about a bit.
Don't care.
What?
That they didn't win?
No, I don't give a shit.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say that they didn't win.
No, this is as it pertains to the list. Fultz is 2 spots higher than Ben Simmons.
Yeah, I think that Fultz is just a slightly better prospect for the modern NBA just because of the shooting ability. and with how important lead guards are now. I think that he is just a slightly more important prospect, really.
Yeah. Okay. I can get behind that as well.
Yeah.
Ben Simmons would also agree that he's a very important prospect because he is also a point guard, but that's not important right now. Fultz.
Man, I thought you were really going for the lack of wins. And I was just going to shut it down.
Do you not know me? Like, what? Lack of wins. Like, I give a shit. I watched that team play.
They were bad.
Come on.
They were really bad.
They were really bad. And, I thought
Put it this way, when they played Washington State, who, Washington State last made the NCAA tournament when Klay Thompson was on that team, I believe.
Yeah.
When they played Washington State had 3 of the 4 best players on the floor.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was actually... I know, listen, everyone's looking for a reason to bash everybody, and Lord knows I've spent my time bashing enough of these hyper-elite prospects and basketball players on this podcast. But I actually thought it was almost a positive for Markelle Fultz that he actually seemed to give half a shit in any way, shape, or form for that Washington team, especially down the stretch when I ended up watching him more. It's like, oh, that was a pretty engaged play there. Maybe not on the defensive end, but
right.
Like the fact that there was some effort at any juncture was I thought that was a bonus for Mr. Fultz. I love his ability to. There's no flaws in his game right now that are going to allow defenses to key in on a specific area and take away spots on the floor for him.
Yeah.
I think he's such a good ball handler. He's such a clean. He
plays with great pace.
He plays with great pace. He also is in full control over the way the way he does it. He can start and stop. He's a go-kart. He's not a diesel engine.
Yeah, his body control is insane, both in terms of being able to stop-start and in terms of being able to be acrobatic around the basket.
And then it's huge on top of that not only can he get to the rim, score at the rim at an impressive clip, but he can also just stop on a dime and pull up, and he'll knock down those shots. And it's a jump shot that can probably be refined a little bit. That's not my area of expertise or anything. It's not perfect. It's not like this preternatural ability, but it's pretty clean right now.
Yep. And
it's more than usable at the NBA level. And he's got range on his shot. And you add all of that in, I mean, you put some shooters around him, as they'll have. You put an elite center offensively under the hoop, as I think they have. Brett Brown has...
you got some toys.
God damn. I mean, J.J. Redick alone is enough to just make Markelle Fultz give, twice as many shits as he did last year.
Yeah.
Just J.J. Redick. Imagine what happens after the 1-year veteran. Like, it's I agree that he should be 2 spots higher than Simmons. I think Simmons has perhaps a higher ceiling. I don't know if Fultz is going to be...
I think I would agree with that.
...an elite of the elite, but Markelle Fultz is going to be an impact player from day one in the NBA at the most important position on a team that I think he's going to unlock a lot of things for. The first time we really see the 76ers, we're going to see them at a pretty high level. This is not going to be a gradual thing. I think that they come out of the gates running, and I think it's because they'll have Fultz capable of running the show at the NBA level from day one, and he's only going to get better as the season goes along, and so will the 76ers.
Yeah, super high level, all-star caliber player, in my opinion, Markelle Fultz.
No question on that. I mean, I think that Ben Simmons has MVP caliber talent down the line. I'm not sure if Markelle Fultz does. That said, absolutely all-star level player.
Yep, I think that's fair. That Simmons has a slightly higher ceiling, but Fultz is probably a better overall prospect just due to the lack of floor with Fultz.
Yeah, but the fact that those two guys are, and then there's another one to come. Oh yeah. Man,
let's talk about this top 5 now. And this next tier, I think this is definitely the top tier of guys right here that are under 23 in the NBA. This first guy and the second guy. So at number 5, I have Nikola Jokic. At number 4, I have Kristaps Porzingis. This is a topic that Michael Pina and I debated on the podcast a few weeks back. And he took Jokic. I took Porzingis. I think that Jokic certainly had a better year last year than Porzingis did. I don't really think there's any way around that. But if we're betting on who I think is going to be the better player long term, I see more room for growth with Porzingis than I do with Jokic at this stage.
Agreed. Totally agreed on that. I think that that's an accurate assessment. That said, Jokic is frighteningly good offensively right now.
Yes.
And actually, I have a hard time figuring out sort of if there's a lot of room for him to grow. Obviously, he's going to get better with age, but he's just not, he's not one of these athletic guys. He's not, a supernova athletically. So maybe this is just this is kind of, he's at this level, it's going to get a little better, and he's going to sustain it for a while, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know where it is. I'm interested on your thoughts on this.
Yeah, so he started, starting for the Nuggets in, I think, mid-December or so, somewhere in that range. He averaged 19.5 points, 11 rebounds, and 6 assists per game in 30 minutes per game in those 49 games. That is just obscene. That's just
MVP level play.
Absolutely obscene. Full stop all-star numbers in those times.
Oh, yeah. No question.
And he did it on a 58% field goal percentage. He was knocking down nearly a 3 per game. Just total monster offensively in every way. There's not really a way to sugarcoat it beyond saying that, Nikola Jokic was one of the best offensive players in the NBA last season. There's not really a... I'm trying to figure out how to best say it, but he was just one of the best players offensively in the NBA last season.
He was awesome.
He was also, for me, a very harmful defensive player for them. They do limit second chance opportunities with him on the floor in a really tangible way, which is important for a center. But the rim protection is just a significant issue. The lack of mobility is a significant issue. And I don't know where the room for growth is, given what his athleticism level is. He's just an incredibly high IQ player, an incredibly instinctual player. Maybe as he continues to get more experience on the defensive end in the NBA, he just knows exactly where to be positionally every single time. Kind of how Marc Gasol does it, but Marc Gasol's also 2 or 3 inches taller than he is and just bigger than he is. Maybe he just figures it out in that kind of similar way. But it's really hard for me to see a positive defensive player here, or even an average defensive player.
Yeah,
right now.
That's it. That's 100% accurate. So the question is, how much of that athletic limitation is going to manifest itself going forward in his offensive game? Has he reached offensively? Because if he has, and he can sustain these numbers, no problems. But is this as good as it's going to get?
Even if it is as good as it's going to get, that's fine. And he's still an all-star if this is as good as it gets.
No, when I said the numbers that you stated were legitimate MVP numbers.
Yeah, he's really good. He's really just unbelievable. It's when you really sit down and look at what he did and watch the tape and understand how he makes teammates better offensively as well. He's not just putting up empty numbers. He is making Denver the number 1 offense or number 2 offense in the NBA when he plays and when he's able to run that point center and able to lead the break in transition and make ridiculous passes from the high post and knock down threes and occasionally get to the foul line and post a little bit and everything that you want from an offensive center he can bring. But I just don't know what to do with him defensively, and we can kind of throw Porzingis in here now. There are numbers to suggest, and I think that watching him on tape kind of bears this out, that he's one of the 5 best rim protectors in the NBA already.
Yes.
That shouldn't really come as a surprise. He's 7'3" with a 7'7" wingspan. He's just going to be able to do that. The question is, again, mobility. He's still not a super high plus defensive player. He's probably, to be honest, like just given the effect around the rim, probably only on aggregate a slightly above average defensive player. I do think the fact that he's one of the best rim protectors already makes him an above average defensive player, just kind of in and of itself. But he's lower than what he should be because of the offensive, or because of the lack of mobility. But you look at his body and you look at the way that I think his lower half could fill out, and you look at the way that I think his frame is going to fill out as he continues to age. I think he's actually going to get a little bit more fluid in terms of the way he moves his body. Maybe you could make that argument for Jokic, but Jokic is like kind of hunched a little bit, doesn't really have that same athletic build necessarily. Not to say that Jokic is unathletic by normal human standards, but like when you're talking about the elite of the elite at this level, Porzingis' frame, and he's already slightly more mobile than Jokic, Porzingis' frame bears itself out to getting a bit more lateral quickness, kind of adding that quickness that he needs to at least be a deterrent on the perimeter, if not a high-level player.
He's just straight up more athletic. And the frame comes into it, but like Porzingis, you can just tell by the fact that he's able to get up and listen, he's 7'3" and he's got that stupid wingspan. Like he's more physically gifted in that regard in terms of stature, but he's also, going to contest shots above the rim, and he's trying, he runs the court better and all these things. Like he's more athletic. So there's a lot more room for Porzingis to grow than Jokic. And
but here's the question though that I have for you.
Okay.
How much farther does Porzingis have to grow to reach what Jokic has actually done already?
Oh, that's a great question. So let me just pull up Jokic's numbers here real quick, and then let me get Kristaps.
So Porzingis was like 18 and 7 last year without the passing.
Yeah.
Jokic was like 20 and 11 with the passing. Like there is a tangible, significant difference to them offensively. There's also a tangible, significant difference to them defensively, I think.
Okay, agree on that. How much of, to be fair, Jokic has better teammates around him.
Absolutely, no doubt.
So listen, the passing is not a comparable.
No, not even within
we can't
the
have a
realm.
Conversation about that. I want to make that clear. The center's averaging 5 assists per game and 10 rebounds. Like that's preposterous. How much further does he have to go? He's not going to have the passing. He's not going to be a facilitator like that. So at 18 points a game, I think he would probably have to get to, you definitely have to get to 22 to 24 points per game, with sort of, a little bit higher of a clip at the 3-point line. He's going to have to, Porzingis is first and foremost going to have to shoot better than 50% from 2.
Yeah, I think that the finishing around the rim has really not been up to par. I think a lot of that has to do with spacing, for sure. But,
for sure. Yeah.
In the half court, he has not been as good around the rim as you would expect a guy like that to be. I think he's also been a little bit unlucky with his like little floater shots and like little push shots as well. Like he shot 33% on those shots last year. That's not normal for a guy that, shot 48% from 10 to 16 feet and, 36% in 500 shots outside of that range. So like, I think that there's just going to be some positive regression there, but he really just needs to slightly take that next step in terms of 3-point percentage and needs to really just kind of defensive rebound better. He does need to be a better defensive rebounder, I think.
Yeah. It's really tough because I do agree with you that
the Jokic is indisputably better right now.
But yes.
And I think it's not by a small amount.
It really comes down to how you value defense.
Yeah. And specifically how you value defense at what for me is still the most important defensive position.
Yeah. Yeah, and no question.
That's why I have Porzingis there, because I do think that if the lower half fills out like I think it's going to, he can be an all-defense team member.
Let's also,
And he's not a great, like I said, he's not a great defender yet, but I think he can get there.
Just to knock Kristaps' defense a little bit, he can still get knocked off the block like real easy.
Yeah, but I'm not worried about that though right now. Like again, I think the body's going to fill out. Like I guess if you assume my hypothesis that he's going to fill out, because that's the only reason that I have him this high. Like I think his body's going to fill out and he's going to become a bit more athletic and he's going to become a bit stronger. Like to where he's not going to get knocked off the ball like that.
Yeah.
If you assume that hypothesis, then you're just kind of not worried about him getting knocked off the ball right now because he's skinny. If you assume the frame comes around, you're just not worried about that. But if you still have questions on the frame, then it's almost a no-brainer to take Jokic, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the worst case scenario, let's say best case scenario for Jokic, which is the offensive game improves a little bit and the defensive game becomes just less than passable. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
That is leaps and bounds better than if Kristaps just sort of plateaus.
Yeah, for sure, 100%.
So that's I
don't think he's going to just plateau, though.
I don't think so either. I wasn't saying that, but it is something to keep in mind there. That,
but
everyone talks about Kristaps. I would never. Kristaps is talked about in such exalted tones, and I think fairly, but he's still a lot of potential, even though he is putting up really solid numbers. We're still operating in this realm of potential, whereas Jokic, I don't necessarily think that he operates out of that realm, even though he is under 23. We sort of know what we're getting. Last year was the breakout year, and now it's about refinement and marginal improvement, specifically in the areas of the biggest amount of difficulty, which is on the defensive end. So it's really hard to compare the two of them because it's not necessarily apples and oranges, but it's pretty close just where they're at in their overall.
Well, they're going to be compared for the rest of their careers because they're like Eastern European centers. I get it,
but they're not of the same mold.
No, not at all. One is a floor spacing rim protector. The other is a complete offensive weapon that is a negative defensively. Like, I don't know. That is one of, for me, that might be the hardest debate in the NBA right now.
I think we know where you stand over the next, let's just say 5. You're in on Kristaps. He's going to fill out, and you think that upside there is the differentiating factor. And let's say the same is for 3, but for the next, let's say 2 years, who would you rather have on your team? You get
next year for sure Jokic.
The year after that, which is what for Kristaps? The year after that would be his age 23 season. So by the time Kristaps is off this list, who is the better player?
Probably still Jokic. I think.
Probably.
Over the next 2, probably still Jokic.
So you're saying that's tough now. You see, now that's where it really gets into it, because now we're saying you still think Kristaps jumps over him, but that's 25 to 23 years old.
Yeah, you're talking about 23-year-old Kristaps, I think, being better than 23-year-old Jokic. At that stage, I think you're okay with.
Would you be better than 25-year-old Jokic? How old? Jokic is 2 years older than him, right?
Jokic is just about the same age, if not a year. I think there's maybe 200 days between them.
Okay.
2/3 of a year.
Okay. So they're going to be linked forever. Good call.
Yeah, they're going to be linked. They're going to be linked forever, for sure. Yeah, I just don't know, to be honest. This is one of those ones where if you go either way, I'm not going to begrudge you.
I bet that NBA GMs are split on this too.
Yeah, I would think they are too. I really would.
That's a good straw poll to throw out there.
Yeah. Let's go on ahead and move on to this guy who I think is kind of by himself in this little rung here. It's Joel Embiid at number 3. When he was on the floor this year, he was an all-star.
Period. He was MVP candidate.
Yes, he was unbelievable this year. He was averaging, Hold on, the numbers are coming. They're going, but slowly.
They're quite amazing.
Yes, he was averaging 20 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists per game, 2.5 blocks per game in, wait for it, 25 minutes per game.
Not fair.
That's not human in any stretch.
I don't know if I can filibuster this long, but if someone could go on just Play Finder on Basketball Reference and see if anyone's ever done that, like put up that level of overall play in that short a period of time.
So what? 28, 11, 3 and 3 per 36 minutes is what that is.
Okay. Well, I'm sure people have done that.
Filibuster.
No, that's it is interesting that we talk so much about Embiid. Embiid's 3 on this list. He's played 31 games. I think 31 games. So, mind you, like Ben Simmons hasn't played a game yet. He's still on this list. Embiid is in a class of his own because he is not only this like immense ball of potential at a position, this inside out, unbelievable defensive player. Just you can't throw anything at him that he won't be able to handle, except for maybe playing a full 82-game season. He is both actualized potential in a very real way and just like still oodles of unactualized potential. It's a very weird cross section. So that I think that's why you said this is why he's in a class of his own.
So yeah, here we go.
Yeah, I want to hear his names.
Okay, there's Joel Embiid. And Joel Embiid.
Okay.
Just Joel Embiid.
Is there any Joel Embiids?
There is only one Joel Embiid. There is only one player who has ever averaged 28, 11, 3, and 3.5 over the course of a season. Embiid did it over 31 games. So, and that's per 36 minutes. That is.
Right. So, I mean, listen, it could have fallen off. This is not to say that this is. He will put up these.
And so he did this also while he was on the floor, the best defense in the NBA statistically.
Yes.
While he was on the floor.
Yes.
That's
like Joel. You filibuster for a second while I look something up.
Yeah, Joel Embiid is like just not possible. Like everything that he's capable of doing on the basketball floor, from shooting threes to being the best rim protector in the NBA other than Rudy Gobert when he's on the floor, to having ridiculous post moves, to being now a outrageous passer who can like hit guys from the left block all the way to the right wing. It's stupid, like what he's capable of. I really don't even know how to comprehend what we saw last year, just because it was over such a small sample and because the injury questions are just so vast. Like the fact that he's now played 31 games in 3 years is terrifying.
Right.
If we're going off of just talent and off of like just what people have shown when they've been on the floor, he is number one by far. Like I don't even think it's close. Like, and this comes with, obviously Giannis is still here, but like Giannis is a freak. And it's still not even close with what Embiid has done. Yeah.
It's awesome. I just hope that we get more of it. He is a 50-1 player to win the MVP next year.
I don't think he'll win MVP, man. Man.
I'm just saying. If he's healthy.
I don't think he's going to get the minutes. Like, I think they're going to take care of him.
Well, he didn't need the minutes last year.
Yeah, but he wouldn't. Like, say he does what he did. If he did that over.
If he did that over, let's say, 65 games.
He would have got votes.
So 65. How many minutes per game did he play?
25.
25.
I don't know if he would have gotten real votes. I think he would have been like 6th in the MVP voting.
Well, maybe not last year because a dude averaged a triple double and James Harden had one of the most efficient offensive seasons of all time. But let's just say we live in a normal world. Can Joel Embiid, if he put up those same numbers, those same statistics, win the MVP in less than 1,500 minutes played? That's 60 games at 25 minutes per game.
No, I don't think he can.
So it's probably 2,000 is his threshold.
I think he needs to play 2,000 minutes. I agree.
What is that over like 70 games?
It's like 30 minutes a game over 70 games.
Yeah, it's like 28, 30 minutes a game. That's the number, man. That's the number.
But we're talking about MVP with Joel Embiid, like as soon as next year.
Yes.
Like he's that talented.
Well, think about it. Like, one, he was a legitimate MVP candidate last year. I know that doesn't make any sense because he played 31 games, but in those 31 games, it's like, oh shit, this guy might be the best player in the NBA right now. Those numbers bear it out. I don't think
he was that good, but he was like a top 5 player in the NBA.
Okay, perfect. Well, I say candidate.
Yeah.
So,
like
MVP candidate. He was in the conversation, much as Jimmy Butler should constantly be in the conversation.
Like it's really hard to be an MVP when you play 25 minutes a game. It's really hard.
No question. I'm not saying he should have won it or anything like that. I'm just saying that it was like, hey, we have to discuss Joel Embiid and MVP.
We do. That's fair.
That was a conversation that happened.
Yeah.
It was short and ultimately unproductive, but it happened. That did not happen for like D'Angelo Russell.
No.
The Sixers are going to be better. I know that, the expectations over the 76ers 2017-2018 season range from wildly unrealistic to wildly unrealistic on both ends of that spectrum. But, man, they're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about that.
I feel real good about that. You then have all of the context of them making the playoffs. Like everything that happened over the last few years.
Going to be a lot of angry people.
There's going to be a lot of angry people, but there's also going to be just an incredible amount of media attention around it.
I'm so excited.
It is going to be the worst and the best at the same time. You can imagine how this goes.
Being from Pittsburgh, I hate the city of Philadelphia, but I might move to Philadelphia for playoff coverage.
Right. Like, this is going to be just total and utter chaos. If Joel Embiid is playing 30 minutes a night and he plays 70 games and he does...
I don't think he's going to play 30 minutes a night for what it's worth.
Okay, I'm just setting it up for how this happens.
Please, go ahead.
The Sixers get a home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs. That is not outrageous. Not outrageous at all.
I'd be surprised, but it's not
bold.
Outrageous.
It's bold, but it's not outrageous. Joel Embiid plays 30 minutes a night, 70 games. That is bold, but not totally outrageous. It might be borderline outrageous. He puts up numbers similar, actually the same, to what he did last year per 36 minutes. Oh, no, he would have to he puts up slightly better per 36, so he would need to improve slightly over what he did last year.
Mm-hmm.
That is a very strong MVP candidacy.
Especially when you consider that the Sixers had the best defense in the NBA with him on the floor last year.
Right. And then he'll definitely be in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year if he does that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's not an impossible case. It's just I don't think one that will bear itself out because I don't think he's going to reach 2,000 minutes.
Does he have a 150 shot or not?
I do not think he has a 1 in 50 chance.
I think I agree with you on that. That I wouldn't put him down at 150 to 1. But it is the same as Kyrie Irving's, which I think this came out well before some other news came out.
Yeah, I think that Embiid has a much higher case to win MVP than Kyrie Irving. Much better chance to win it than Kyrie.
Fascinating stuff. This guy is
he's impossible to evaluate because
quite something.
So who do you think would get more in a trade, him or Porzingis?
What's his current injury?
Oh, I don't know that he has one right now, but I mean, he has a navicular bone in his foot injury. He has back question marks. The knee was a thing this year. That's why he missed a bunch of games. A lot.
I think Porzingis would get more, just because, right or wrong, you would be able to trust that he's out.
He might be the most untradeable player in the NBA.
That I had not looked at it. That makes a lot of sense.
Just in terms of not being, he doesn't have he doesn't have value.
Either side of that coin.
Yeah.
Either side of that coin. It's just he's either one of the best players in the NBA at a hyper important position.
Yeah.
Or he's just broken. It's like,
yeah,
that's crazy.
All right, let's go on ahead and move on. Should we do number 1 or number 2 first? Because I would imagine that like people kind of recognize him. What is going on with you over there?
What is
You got some static, man.
yeah. Hold on. Is that any better?
Here we go. I think you're much better now.
Okay, cool.
Oh man, what happened?
I don't know how much of that was going on.
It was going on for like a minute. It was funny.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Should we do number 1 or number 2 first?
Let's declare who number 1 is.
Okay, so I think that people realize that, the top 2 players are Karl-Anthony Towns and Giannis. We have Giannis at number 1, Karl-Anthony Towns at number 2. What makes this so tricky is that, again, if Embiid was healthy, I think that you would take him over Towns. But because Towns has never been hurt, significantly, it just has a better track record at this stage, it's really difficult to slot Embiid over him, just as asset value. Like I said, Embiid's probably the least tradable player in the NBA, but Towns is probably
right up
just
there.
more valuable right now.
Yeah.
But Giannis at number 1, Karl-Anthony Towns at number 2. Let's talk about Towns first. Towns is doing things that seem impossible to me. The fact that he is now essentially averaging like 25 points and 12 rebounds a game as a 21-year-old seems impossible.
Yeah. Impossible's the right word.
Yeah, and like he's a good passer. He's also doing it efficiently. He did it on a 62% true shooting percentage, which is 7 points above the league average. He's going to be one of like the 12 best players in the NBA this year.
Yes.
Already.
Yes.
Like they just acquired Jimmy Butler, and Jimmy Butler's probably going to be the second best player in his team.
Yes. Karl Towns is a one-man revolution.
Like I can't remember a player entering the NBA that I felt this confidently about. Like DeMarcus Cousins was really good. We consider DeMarcus Cousins pretty much is an immediate impact player, right? Mm-hmm. DeMarcus Cousins was at 18 and 11 as a 21-year-old second-year player.
Yeah, which was awesome, by the way.
Yes, he was. DeMarcus Cousins was very good. He did it on a 49% true shooting percentage. He was really good, though, basically from jump shot. Karl Towns just put up 25, 12, 3 assists, and a block a game on a 62% true shooting percentage.
Yeah.
That is... he's the most complete offensive center to enter the NBA, at least in the last decade, probably the last 2 decades.
Who would be before that?
I mean, I think it's really difficult. So he's more complete than Shaq, but Shaq also didn't need to be complete.
No, because he was so awesome.
Yeah, Shaq averaged 29 and 13 on a 60% true shooting percentage in year 2. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah. Shaq is also, arguably one of the 10 or 5 best players of all time and pretty securely in the 10 best players of all time.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about with Karl-Anthony Towns. He's that good already.
The craziest thing about Towns to me, and we can talk about him in the macro, but it's just how stupid polished his game is.
So Hakeem Olajuwon, 23.5 points, 11.5 rebounds. Way better in terms of steals and blocks, way better defensively. No one's really going to, I think, make the comparison between Towns and Olajuwon defensively. Yeah. But offensively, Towns has been better than Hakeem Olajuwon. And Hakeem Olajuwon is one of the best offensive centers ever.
Yes. Again, we're talking about Karl-Anthony Towns in the threshold of potential to be all-time great.
Yeah.
No one else on this list yet is in... Embiid, it's way too early to say, just given how little he's played. No one under Embiid, save for perhaps Ben Simmons on the slightest of slivers.
So I
has
will
that
say
possibility.
this. I think all of our top 8 have Hall of Fame potential.
Yes. No, I agree with that.
But
I agree with that.
all-time
I'm talking
great
about,
is different than...
like Chris Mullins in the Hall of Fame. And Chris Mullins is a great player and all, but like when we talk about the story of basketball, are we bringing up Chris Mullins? I don't think so.
Probably do it without Chris Mullins. Yeah.
Probably could. Karl Towns is just like stupefyingly good, and it's stuff that you wouldn't think a big man does. Like it's these things like, you know, shooting 50, having a 55% effective field goal percentage on catch and shoots with a 40% from 3. Like it's things like 62%.
Yeah, he made over 100 threes last year.
62% effective field goal rate when he has 0 dribbles. Like he's a center.
Yeah,
he's a center. He is a
he
preposterous.
Played 3,000 minutes last year as a 7-foot, 250-pound center. Like that's the durability in being able to put up that much production over that high of a minute total at that efficient of a rate is insane.
Yeah, 40% contested rebound percentage.
Yeah, that seems impossible.
40.
Was that number 1 last year?
I'm just looking at his individual page, but it's got to be up there.
Yeah, I'd imagine that's really high.
He's unbelievable. And the fact that he's number 2 on this list is crazy, but I think accurate.
Yeah, so I think the difference between he and Giannis is defense right now. Karl Towns is not a good defender. Yeah,
no,
like he's just a bad defender. There's not really any which way around that at this stage.
He could get to league average, I think, ultimately. But
for sure. I think he can get way better than that.
Yeah.
But he's not nearly there yet. Not even close. Giannis this year averaged 23, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, well over a block, well over a steal a game. Made the 2016-2017 all-defensive team. If you care about rate percentages...
I do.
4.7% block rate, which was 7th in the NBA.
Nuts.
That seems not possible. He affects the game in every way except for shooting the basketball.
And it's coming. Oh, God, is it coming?
I think it is. Oh, that was creepy. But I think it'll get there to where he can shoot the basketball. Like, I can't say for sure, though.
Yeah, no one can say for sure. But he has shown progression each and every year. And, we've talked about this with a couple of guys. Like, if he can knock this down, it's over for them. Like, if Giannis becomes an average three-point shooter, I have no earthly concept of how you can guard him without putting 3 guys on him.
Oh, no, you can't guard him. If he becomes a league average three-point shooter and is taking them on like a quarter of his attempts, basketball is over. Like,
right. He broke it. Like, we thought LeBron James had reached that level. No, it will be Giannis who ultimately is the final boss. Yeah,
and like, to be honest, I don't think he's going to get there. Like,
okay.
I just don't think he's going to be a league average three-point shooter. It doesn't matter though. Like,
and yet we're still here.
And yet he is still number 1 on this list. Yeah, he just changes the physics of the game. Like, being that long, like, he dribbles once from half court and can dunk. And
it's totally bonkers.
The way that he totally shifts the geometry of the game defensively, because he can guard essentially 1 through 5 and also be an elite rim protector and just take up so much space with his length. Like, he literally changes the physics of basketball in a way that I didn't know was possible.
Yeah. So
like,
imagine
with
what
Karl
happens.
Towns, like, we're still kind of playing within the realm of basketball as we know it. He's just doing things we haven't quite seen centers do before.
Yeah, we've seen Boogie Cousins do it. We've seen guys be able to do the inside-outside stuff. We haven't seen someone be this good this early.
Right. Like, he's still working within the framework of basketball as we know it.
Right.
Giannis
and this is not
basketball.
outside of the realm of what we expected for Towns either, to be fair.
Right. Giannis
we did not see coming, and there has not been anyone like him before. And like, they say, he broke the mold with this one. Like, this dude is not of a mold.
No. none of what he does makes sense.
Like, even LeBron sort of makes sense.
Kind of. Like
you see
kind
LeBron,
of makes sense.
LeBron is, like, proportionate. Like, you look at him, you're like, wow, that's a ridiculous, like, what an amazing athlete that person is.
Like, so LeBron is essentially, if you would ask a scientist to build a basketball player in a lab. Right. Giannis is the scientist laughing you out of the room after you ask for Giannis because it's impossible.
It's not even that. Like, Giannis is the weird experiment where, you know, the LeBron went wrong and they gave you a Giannis and it turned out to be twice as potent or something to that effect. You know what I mean? Like he's the happy after effect.
So, like, the crazy thing is like, we talk about Giannis. Like, Giannis is still not as good as LeBron. Like, I do not...
No, that's ridiculous. No, I don't want to come across as if anyone is as good as LeBron.
Like, and to be honest, like, I do not think Giannis will be as good as LeBron.
No,
like, I'll say
because
that.
LeBron is the best player of all time.
Right, like LeBron is just LeBron, and there's, you know, LeBron came into the league averaging 21 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists a game.
Right, like LeBron is the best player to ever play the game, and yet we're still talking about Giannis as if he's somewhere of that. Like, it's not. We're not laughing at it as if he's in that realm, like we would if we were talking about, like, Aaron Gordon.
Right. Like, if you had to guess, do you think Giannis will be a top 25 player ever?
No.
Like, I think that the safer bet is no. I think that it's not impossible.
Yeah, if he makes the top 25, it's like top 15. Like, it's, you know, if he gets into that, it's because he made a big leap on top of this. And if he makes a big leap on top of this, I have no earthly concept of what that looks like, but I do know that basketball is changed forever.
So what? Like, who would be like Charles Barkley is probably a top 25 player ever? Like, somewhere in that range?
He's right on that line, yeah.
Like,
Charles Barkley's a really good player.
Yeah, like, Charles Barkley was a league MVP at some point.
Right.
Like,
is Karl Malone a top 25 player?
Yeah, like, he's not a top 15 player, but he's a top 25 player probably.
Right. So, like, who's a top 15 player? Like
Kobe.
Jerry West? Kobe.
Yeah.
Now we got to get down into rings, but it's like
we're not getting into that conversation.
We're not doing
but, like,
that,
that's the difference between,
you know,
like, you know, like, top 15 and top 25 player, right? Is like Kobe to Karl Malone or like Kobe to Charles Barkley. I think I would bet on Giannis not reaching that, but it's 100% within the realm of possibility that he could reach that.
Right. As it is with Towns, as it is, I think, with Embiid. But I think Giannis is...
Right. I think that those are the three in this generation that are, like, right there. And then there will probably be, like, one of those guys will fail. And, like, one of these guys, like, will come out of nowhere and, like, come close to reaching that level. Because, like, you figure, from the last generation, there was Shaq, there was Kobe, there was Dirk.
Penny.
No, I'm like
one of them failed.
Oh, and one of them failed. But I'm trying to think of, like, top 25 players from the last generation. Like, Dirk is a top 25 player probably. Shaq, Kobe, like the post-Jordan till now era. Before LeBron, though.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's...
Like, those are your three probably that are there?
Yeah.
Like, there's always 3 or 4, it would seem like, that would get there. I think that those are... That's about right. Like, I think those are your 3, plus maybe, like, one more coming out of nowhere.
Yeah. Bonkers.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. Giannis... the fact that Giannis is one of the best defensive players in the NBA now is crazy, too. Like, it was probably always going to happen.
Right.
But, like,
just given those bona fides that he's got.
Yeah. But, like, the fact that he's doing it now is just crazy to me. It's...
I think this is I'll hold up Giannis as an argument for why I think it's better to go with the guys who have the defensive upside first and the athleticism and the stuff to make that happen. But
here's the thing. When Giannis was drafted, like, athleticism was, like, a significant question. Like how explosive was he was the question. Like, we knew that he had, like, this preternatural basketball IQ. And we knew that he was ridiculously long and, like, had great fluidity and, like had just like things that you can't teach.
Right.
But like, how explosive was he? Like, did he have the leaping ability? Did he have the, was he going to be able to just get by on that basketball IQ? He's now one of the best athletes in the NBA. Like, full stop.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, it's ridiculous that even needs to be stated. Of course he is. Have you seen him? He's incredible.
No, I know. Like, it's unbelievable. And it's just crazy to me that we're already at that stage where it took him 3 years to go from something of an athletic question mark in terms of explosiveness, not in terms of dexterity and in terms of coordination and fluidity, but in terms of just being like a leaper and being a guy that, was like hyper quick and everything, quick twitch.
Right.
In like 3.5 years, he's gone from that to this. I just don't know what the next step is. Like,
that was what I was just going to ask you. Like, where does
25? Like 22 to 25 is like the next step.
he's already 2 steps ahead.
Yeah. So like, again, like top 25 player of all time, it's just crazy. But with him, it's like, I think that it's better to bet against that, but I think that's the argument. Like, I think he's going to be a top 50 player of all time.
I can get behind that.
Yeah. But like top 25, I don't know.
I think that he'll probably be a top 50. I think that if he gets into the top 25, he's way up on that list.
Yeah.
So that's who we're talking about.
That's what we're talking about at this stage.
That's incredible.
So let's run through this one more time.
Yeah.
Quick recap. Jaylen Brown, 25. Malik Monk, 24. Yusuf Nurkic, 23. Aaron Gordon, 22. Gary Harris, 21. Jonathan Isaac, 20. Jamal Murray, 19. De'Aaron Fox, 18. Dennis Smith, 17. Brandon Ingram, 16. Jabari Parker, 15. D'Angelo Russell, 14. Lonzo Ball, 13. Josh Jackson, 12. Jayson Tatum, 11. Devin Booker, 10. Myles Turner, 9. Ben Simmons, number 8. Andrew Wiggins, number 7. Markelle Fultz, number 6. Nikola Jokic, number 5. Kristaps Porzingis, number 4. Joel Embiid, number 3. Karl Towns, number 2. And Giannis Antetokounmpo, number 1. How do you think that we did on this thing?
I feel pretty good about it. It's interesting, I've been reading the list from bottom to top, so 25 sort of up, and I've been, staring at a lot of notes down at the bottom because you don't really need that many notes for up at the top. Like, these are, well-established guys. And it's just crazy to me how, like, Aaron Gordon and Giannis and Karl-Anthony Towns are on a list together. And I don't disagree with Aaron Gordon or Nurkic or even, Gary Harris or Jaylen Brown being on the list. But, like, you just don't see Giannis and Towns or even Embiid in that class. You know what I mean?
No.
You just think, like, oh, those guys have already graduated. They're going to be on this list for, like, another year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that Embiid graduates, and Giannis also graduates too next year.
But like, Towns is the guaranteed number 1 on this list next year, unless something.
I think it's for the next 2 years too. I think he's a 96.
Yeah. So it just shows, one, how with a guy like Gordon or Jabari, how potential can be.
Oh, no, Towns is a 95, so he'll be gone in 2 years.
Okay, so they're all gone. But nonetheless, we thought
Towns
they graduated
will be here next
already.
year, but Giannis won't be.
Nonetheless, like, it shows how fleeting potential can be. That these guys, when they came in, it's a guy like Fultz or Simmons or Jackson. There's potential, and it's all potential, and how hard it is to take that potential and manifest it into
actualizing ceiling is incredibly difficult.
So difficult, and then to have these guys at the top who not only, excluding Embiid from this just because of health reasons, but like with Towns and Giannis, to have actualized the ceiling in theory. Maybe Towns isn't there yet because we thought so much for him, but to actualize any realistic ceiling and then exceed it is just that's we learned something about what makes a truly great player today. Because that's what it is. It's actualizing the ceiling and then taking it to the next level and then taking it to another level after that and to continue to get better. These guys are of the cream of the crop in the NBA, and they would still be in college in some situations. It's incredible. Where after Jordan retired, it took a while for the NBA to find its footing again, even though there were great players, truly great all-time players in the league. And it needed, LeBron to come in and establish the league as his own. LeBron is going to be around for a bit, but we're wondering who's going to, grab the reins once LeBron leaves. And that might be sooner than, we think. And I just don't think that there's any concern over what that next era is going to look like.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't really think there is. Another thing that I think is really interesting about this is the idea of variance is really important. I think
Totally.
Having just the ability to have a ceiling, I think is incredibly important at this stage. Guys like Josh Jackson, Lonzo Ball, Jayson Tatum, I would venture that one of those guys will probably be outside of the top 20 next year when we do this list. Just like the odds are in that favor, right?
And we're going to find a couple of guys who, weren't on this list, but were from this class who are going to be on this one. And there's going to be guys from next year's, rookie class that are going to jump over guys who have established NBA, careers. It's
right. And like Gary Harris probably wouldn't have been on this last year, but is now established himself on it this year.
That would have been a bold play.
So in terms of teams on here, we've got 3 Sixers, 3 Nuggets, 2 Wolves, 2 Suns, 2 Lakers, 2 Celtics, 2 Magic members. Magics? 2 Bucks.
Magicians.
2 Magicians. 1 Knick, 1 Pacer, 1 Mav, 1 Net, 1 King, 1 Hornet, and 1 Blazer. Some teams that should be a little bit scared that they don't have a player on this list. Your Chicago Bulls.
Yes, but they're not scared of anything because have a plan. They have a plan.
The Detroit Pistons don't have one. That's not great. The Atlanta Hawks, but they're just beginning their rebuild. That's not super duper surprising, I don't think. I think those are the 3 that really scare me. I would say the Pelicans not being on this list could also be a little bit scary.
They're kind of in the moment, though.
But they are going for it now, I guess, in a way.
Whatever that means.
Same with the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies are going for it, but that could turn real quickly, it seems like, to where that's a scary process. It's
teams that, the teams that should be worried are the teams that are clearly looking towards the future or really have no choice but to look for the future, but don't seem to have a critical cornerstone for the future, which would reside on this list.
Yeah, at least the Knicks have Porzingis. That's good.
He is one man. He's hope in human form.
And the Bulls next year could have Markkanen on this list, and that wouldn't be a surprise. He was probably in the 5 that I left off. Maybe the 6 or 7 that I left off of this list.
Okay. I hope you're right. I don't think you are.
Yeah, you're very out on Lauri Markkanen.
And I should be in.
Dieter, tell the people where they can find your work.
Check out my stuff, Athletic San Francisco or Athletic Bay Area. I'm not really sure what the
think it's Bay
style.
Area.
Yeah, is it Bay Area? Thank you. I'm not sure what the style guide is on that. Doing some Raider stuff, some just stuff around the Bay Area. A couple more opportunities coming up here and pretty soon. So hopefully by the next time we talk, Samuel, I can announce all of those, and we'll see how that all pans out. But just sending out bad tweets on Twitter and doing stuff in the meantime. But big month. Hopefully by September 1, bunch of things to unfurl.
Follow Dieter over at D Kurtenbach on Twitter. He will send out really bad dad jokes.
They're so bad.
Even though he's 28 and definitely has no children that we know of.
We know.
So this has been the Game Theory Podcast. Please remember, if you have somehow gotten to this point on the show, to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. It really helps us move up in the ratings. Just keep it locked to The Athletic. The Field House, everything like that. We're going to be doing some more of this stuff. It's still the off season. Not quite into the point where I'm going to start doing NBA team previews yet. Maybe soon, we'll see. But, we're kind of gearing up for that kind of season right now. And eventually, once we get past NBA previews, we'll start doing some more college basketball previews as well, especially now that it seems like everyone is pretty settled. They're starting to come back from all of their European trips and starting to kind of get into that space where we can start thinking about college basketball again.
Hey, Sam, when does college basketball season start this year? When are they tipping off?
November 10th or something.
Yeah, it's crazy. So the NBA, just to everybody out there, if you've made it this far and you haven't noticed yet, like NBA tips off like 2 whole weeks earlier this year.
Yeah, it's
middle of October.
October 15th, right? Something
used
like
to be
that.
around Halloween, and they would do like a Thursday night game. Or now it's like, I think it's the 17th is the tip off.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So it's coming up. It's coming up hot and heavy, and so. But it is nice because it spaces it out a little bit more from the college stuff to where, it's not getting intertwined as much. We'll have that period of, post tip-off euphoria in the NBA where we can kind of turn our attention to the college game, which I am excitedly back into these days because my Mizzou Tigers are actually going to be decent.
Man, should I start doing preview podcasts soon then? Maybe I should.
That's your prerogative, man. I mean, we can get the Bulls out of the way. They're going to suck.
Okay, done. Bulls are done.
Please rate and subscribe.
Please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. The Bulls are done. Thank you all for listening. I really appreciate it again. Until next time, we'll talk soon. Bye.